All right, so the U.S. economy grew by 3.2% in the first quarter, topping expectations. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, the proof the recession is behind it. Look, because the recession is never over. The recession is always in front of us, always. A bear market in stocks is always in front of us. But I just sit there and I chuckle at the negative Nellies who said, oh my goodness, look, we have the inverted yield curve. I'm going to read you another article here real quick. Maybe I'll bring that up here today on this video. I think I will actually. That some guy from Bloomberg was it's nuts, man. I just don't get it. This idea that the recession is A, imminent, and B, that is basically it's like a bomb dropping off our head. It just boggles my mind. And then we have numbers like this that come in. Now, look, this is backward looking. All right, so what we have, leading indicators and trailing indicators, and the leading indicators are more receptive to recession data. And one of the leading indicators is obviously consumer spending, which is taking a little bit of a tumble. I'm not much, but a little bit. Housing starts and things of that nature. I don't even pay. I literally pay no mind to it because it happens regardless of what you think. There's nothing you can do to offset the pending imminent doomsday of recession, because when's it going to come? Because the leading indicators in the latter part of 2019, the beginning part of 2018 and 2019 showed a recession was coming too, and yet it didn't happen. In fact, the stock market took off when hell's bells in the first quarter. So you can't listen to these people. I'm sorry, you can't. And I don't even care if the people who say, like we're going to get a 4% GDP. Look, you can't listen to that either. The issue, though, is when you can do something about getting rid of regulation to allow companies to grow better, you're going to improve the GDP growth. A GDP growth will lead to more employment, which is going to reduce the liabilities to Social Security. Why? Because we have more people working, more people paying into the system. It's going to reduce the liability of Medicare. Why? Because you have more people working, more people paying into the system. On top of that, you got more consumer spending. Oh, here's this. Who's this? What just happened? All right, so, okay, I got goes out of her. That was kind of creepy. Did y'all see that lady showing up? Oh, that's okay. Whoa, what happened? All right, why can't I get rid of this lady? Oops, I'll pass this time. There we go. All right. Okay, sweet. Woo. All right, so let's read this. Economists polled by Dow Jones expected the U.S. economy to increase by 2.5% in the first quarter. Economists, they predicted 17 of the last 4 recessions. Just remember that. It was the first time since 2015 that the first quarter topped 3%. So 2015, who was president? Obama. All right. So again, even though the Republicans were like, in 2015, the economy did grow by 3% in the first quarter. Now, Obama never had a 3% year-over-year GDP growth. Never. And part of that is because of heavy regulation, without question. The Trumpster is a lot less regulatory minded, and because that, we should absolutely get a 3% year-over-year growth. But this is absolutely not recessionary. You can't get recessionary if you're growing the economy. Recessionary means you have 2 consecutive years of quarters of negative growth. So this is 1 quarter of positive growth that's behind us. We are now into quarter 2 of the year. Could this quarter be negative? Sure, absolutely. The Treasury, the inverted yield curve and all that, absolutely. But we need 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth to be in recession. So we have to start in April. Are we looking at negative growth for 2 consecutive quarters? I don't think so. But Josh, the inverted yield curve, oh my goodness. I could care less. The U.S. economy grew okay, so let me just tell you real quick. The inverted yield curve will lead to a recession at some point. And if you've been following me, my friends, you know what else was going to lead to something. If you eat carrots, you're going to die. Thus, to say the inverted yield curve leads to a recession would be as simple as saying carrots lead to death. There is no correlation there from a causation perspective. One happens, it doesn't cause the other to happen. Is there some correlation? Sure. If I eat carrots, I guarantee I'll die, without question. Is there an inverted yield curve? I guarantee there'll be a recession at some point. Does the correlation lead to the causation, though? No, it doesn't. All right. First quarter GDP expanded by 3.2%, according to BEA, the Bureau of Economic Analysis. In its initial read of the economy for that period, economists said it was only going to go by 2.5%. So they were, I don't have my calculator. Let's see. They were off significantly. Let's see here. So we got let me get my trusty calculator, my friends. 2.75 is what they're saying. So they were 0.7%. They were off by I mean, they were off. So zero point 0.7 divided by 2.5. They were off by 28%. Economists are off by 28%. The upside beat was helped by net trade exports. Net trade exports jumped while imports contracted sharply. Oh no, the trade war! The trade war! Which contributed almost 170 basis points of the rise. Chief Investment Officer at Bleakley Advisory Group. Personal spending, though, the biggest component was up just 1.2%, 0.2 more than expected, as an increase in spending on services was offset by a decline in spending on durable goods. I guarantee when we read this, I haven't read this article, but I guarantee there are going to be some negative Nellies who say, yeah, it was good, but exports rose 3.7% while imports decreased by 3.7%. The trade war! Ah! Disposable personal income increased by 3% while prices increased by 1.3%. The trade war! We're all going to pay more! And yet disposable personal income increased by 3% while prices did increase by 1.3%. Overall prices climbed by 0.8% in the first quarter. If you're wondering why I'm itching my nose, I don't do cocaine. I sniff like that sometimes. I'm a teetotaler, my friends. My nose itches because I have some of these in the North Georgia. When we have a rain, I do get allergies, and sometimes I sniffle, and sometimes I sneeze, and sometimes it itches my nose. Friday's data was the first look at how the economy fared during the longest government shutdown in history. The government shut down! The inverted yield curve! The Trump trade war! Trump is a Nazi! The federal government ceased operations for 35 days. I'll remember all these people. The government shutdown is going to lead to a economic decline like we have never seen since, I don't know, who knows. Investors are closely, actually, let's take a look here about the markets doing today with this report. Just came out a few minutes ago, and the Dow is off. The Nasdaq's off quite a bit. Why is the Dow off? Because they think they're going to raise interest rates again. You don't want to fight the Fed. They're not raising rates, man. I'm telling you right now. Then we got Xi Jinping, whatever the guy's name for China, signals approval for Trump's trade war demands, according to Bloomberg. I would expect. I would expect the markets would go back to the green here, but who knows? I mean, the market, you don't want to fight the Fed. Rule number one in investments: don't fight the Fed, which means the Fed's raising. You don't want to be in the markets, but the Feds aren't going to raise. The report helps offset fears of slowing global growth, says Alec Young, FTSE Russell, blah blah blah. At the time of lingering U.S. trade uncertainty, and what's the guy's name in China? Xi Jinping. I always forget the guy's name. Is a Mao wannabe, but he says he signals approval for Trump's trade war demands. Trump didn't start the trade war. Trump's the one ending it. The trade war was started under Bush and Obama that we just put our hands behind our back, and Clinton too, for that matter. Hell, you go back to Reagan. The trade war was, everyone else has been fighting a trade war. We just been the freaking cannon fodder, but Trump's the one who's going to end it in the favor of U.S., which I love. Let's see. Strong, weak economic data everywhere from Germany to Korea to Japan. Was there a trade war between Germany, Korea, Japan, and China? So if there's weak economic economy there, and yet they're saying the Trump trade war is going to lead to a recession. These guys are fools, man. And it's not that they're fools because they don't know. They don't know, but they act like they do. And with inflation still subdued, it's too early to start worrying about Fed rating rates again. All right, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to bring up another article. It's going to tick you off. Hold on just a sec. This is from December 10th, 2018, from a guy named Barry Ritholtz, right in Bloomberg. And Ritholtz has a pretty big and loyal following. I just don't like him. There's no other way around that. He rubs me wrong. Just all these guys, Wall Street. He got a guy that runs with him named Josh Brown. All these guys act like they know what they're talking about. They don't, any more than I do. I mean, they don't, but they act like it. And they get a nice place to write stuff in Bloomberg and on Twitter and stuff. It's just all opinions shrouded in evidence of whatever, who they don't like. Now, they lean left. I get that. So I naturally tend to disagree with the lefties because they're wrong. They're wrong all the time. But in this case, it's just funny here. It wasn't smart to dump a dovish Fed chief, run up the deficit, and start a trade war. Trump did all three. Trump didn't start the trade war. Trade wars, he just engaged in it finally. All right, run up the deficit. Dude, are you kidding me? What's the deficit been doing since Clinton and Newt Gingrich? The deficit is the only time we've had a balanced budget, and still Richard Nixon was in office. If my memory serves, I think it was Nixon. We've had deficits each and every year. Trump didn't run with the deficit. Hell, look at what Obama did. Now, I grant you, after the first 2 years, Obama did it with a Republican Congress not the Senate, but he certainly had a rather conservative-leaning House, and they just went along for the ride because no politician is going to stop spending. That's what they're paid to do, is spend, bring home the bacon, Republican and Democrat. All right, so let's see what old Barry writes here. For those looking for an explanation why the stock market suddenly became tumultuous in the fourth quarter, you can stop searching. The answer is Donald Trump, and I don't say that lightly. For the better part of the last 3 years, I suggested that investors not let their partisan political views influence their choices. This is no longer the case. The Trump administration's policy passes legislation by Congress and implemented by the executive branch have driven interest rates higher. The executive branch implements higher interest rates. Passed legislation passed by Congress implements higher interest rates. News to me. Made deficits bigger and led to a trade war again because China was just sitting back there idly, just twiddling their thumbs, being good little capitalists, and then we came along, and our risk of a glowing slowdown and even a recession. For a while, markets were able to ignore this and absorb the flow of good news about the economy, which finally was shedding the drag from the financial crisis. At the same time, I also said presidents generally get too much credit or blame for the economy, although they can, of course, screw it up. Indeed, a president, whether misguided by his advisors or ill-informed, this president has both going for him, can make things much worse, as he talks about here. I assume that Trump's aggressive style, he's aggressive, economic ignorance. Trump is economically ignorant. I mean, just saying that boggles the mind. I mean, look, you might not like Trump politically. I get it. You might not like his aggressive style. You cannot say he's economically ignorant. The dude's been running companies before freaking Barry was in diapers, man. And personal peccadillos wouldn't leave a lasting mark on either stocks or bonds. Huh? Oh, yeah. Now, roughly 2 years later, the chaos surrounding his presidency proves that was wishful thinking. At the risk of engaging in narrative fallacy with hindsight bias, let's consider three distinct policies of the administration and how they're hurting the economy. Higher interest rates. Trump replaced Janet Yellen, the dovish Federal Reserve chiefs, with hawkish Jerome Powell. All right, so they raised rates. Trump didn't like that, but Trump did say during his campaign he wanted higher interest rates because he wanted mom and pop to be able to have more cash at the bank. And so we got it, and what happened? Nothing. There's no one else to blame for this mistake but Trump. Powell's leanings were well known, so those are true of Trump's other appointment for vice chair. The self-inflicted error is perplexing because now he's saying we should be. He berated Yellen for saying she should be ashamed that rates were so low. We have since found out that, and this is just an odd thing right here. We have since found out that he did not reappoint Yellen because he felt that at 5'3" she was too short to run the central bank. This has got to be one of the great unforced errors in the post-war history of monetary policy. That's just freaking nuts. Global recession concerns. Rising rates have helped push the yield curve towards inversion. Yep, we are there. And I'm just going to put back to what the yield curve is, what the 10-year Treasury is now, 2.5. 10-year Treasury 2.5 has actually gone down. So why would the 10-year Treasury go down with the economic news that we had today? Well, the reason is because people are buying up the bonds because they think the rates are going to go higher to try to get out of stocks. So increased demand, lower yields, but rising rates have helped push up the yield curve. Interesting. But the 10-year Treasury, 2.5. Yield curve, the yields aren't going up. They're just not. Now, short term, sure. But long term, intermediate, long term, they're not. No other way around that. All right. Let's see. Now we see, the classic recession warning is when yields on 10-year and 2-year securities invert. Didn't happen. Now, remember, old Barry was talking about recession happening in December 2018, as was everybody else. And here we are at the end of April 2019. Hasn't happened. Now we see broader signs that global growth is slowing. Corporate profits may have hit a peak. Economies are cyclical. The U.S. has gone almost a decade without a recession. Roughly 2 times longer than the average interval between slowdowns. That's what I'm saying. For the love of the good Lord. Well, we've got 10 years without a recession, which is 2 times longer than the average interval between slowdowns, and somehow we're supposed to be, oh my goodness, recession's coming, oh, lock up your daughters. It's nuts. This implies we're overdue for a slump. None of the usual signs of imminent recession are present, but 2020 to 21 isn't an unthinkable timeline. I agree with that. It's not an unthinkable timeline. Why? Because every 5 years we get something like that, according to old Barry here. We're always in the midst of looking at recession because it happens every base of what old Barry's saying is here. It happens essentially every 2 years, every 5 years. Trade war, yet another self-inflicted wound. I don't care. The president sandbagged Wall Street despite his well-known casual relationship with the truth. It's just passive aggressive stuff here. Traders naively assumed the president would be misled about something as crucial as the resolution of expanding trade war. By the time declared I'm the tariff man, he has lost the trust. Okay, I frankly just don't care. But the issue is, yes, he does own the stock market. And since Barry wrote this, essentially in 2018, the market is up about 25% of the S&P 500. All right, so December 2018, if you would have held in there, you would have done well. Look, am I saying 3 months from now it'll be up another 25%? I got no clue. You should have no clue. I don't know. But the idea that Trump is doing something to create this imminent recession we all got to be fearful of is, it's shameful. It's shameful. Could Obama do the same thing? Yes, he could. But I actually give credit. Trump and Obama and Reagan and Clinton, they get too much credit for the positive stuff. I do think they can screw things up, though. I absolutely agree with that. Heavy regulatory environment for sure can screw things up. I mean, look at the EPA, man. You got a little stream in your backyard. They can say it's a freaking wetland and they can't build. That's nuts. And that is a federal regulation, which we shouldn't have. But at the end of the day, Trump's not doing that. He's getting rid of a lot of this stuff, which increases growth opportunity, and we're seeing the effect here today. 6 months from now, 3 months from now, it could be completely different. We are seeing some signs of a couple things going a little bit negative. But growing is still growing. They're just decelerating. And remember, the rate of acceleration still means you're going in the right way, but the rate of acceleration is slowing down a little bit. It still means it's going in the right way. We're still growing. So stop the worry. Even if it were to go down, I don't care, and you shouldn't either. All right, that's all I want to say about that. So hang in there. Be fine. All is good. We'll see you next time.